The holographic displays surrounding the interrogation chamber painted a picture that Commander Thexal's predatory mind struggled to accept. Detailed analysis of Zephyrian anatomy highlighting weakness points. Tactical assessments of their hunting ships with marked vulnerabilities. Most disturbing of all, psychological profiles of the crew that were accurate down to individual behavioral predictions. "How long?" Thexal asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How long have you been studying us?" Marcus Webb consulted a device that materialized from his clothing like a magic trick, though the Zephyrians now understood it was simply technology beyond their current understanding. "Active intelligence gathering began 14 months ago when your fleet entered the Proxima sector. But humans have been studying predator species for much longer than that." The main display shifted to show a vast database containing information on hundreds of different alien species. Each entry included detailed biological analysis, behavioral patterns, technological assessments, and tactical recommendations. The scope of human intelligence gathering was staggering. "Earth has a saying," Marcus continued. "Know your enemy." But that's thinking like prey. Apex hunters have a different philosophy. Understand your prey so completely that the hunt becomes inevitable. Navigator Hesheth was frantically accessing her ship's databases, trying to find any reference to human military capabilities that matched what she was observing. "Our intelligence reports classify humans as agricultural traders, minimal military presence, no advanced stealth technology, no significant threat to established predator species." "Those reports are accurate," Marcus said with that mild smile that had become terrifying in its implications. "Most humans are agricultural traders. We prefer peaceful commerce and cooperation. But when threatened by apex predators, we become something else entirely." The communication system crackled again, and Captain Chen's voice filled the chamber. "Marcus, we're detecting increased electromagnetic activity from the Zephyrian dreadnought Apex Throne. They appear to be moving to intercept. Estimated arrival, 47 minutes. Sub-Commander Vorth's mandibles clicked with what might have been relief. "The Huntmaster comes with 1,200 warriors. Your small fleet cannot stand against the full might of our hunting pack." Marcus exchanged a glance with the communication display, and Captain Chen's laugh was audible through the speakers. "Did you tell them about the Apex Throne, Marcus?" "I was getting to that," Marcus replied. "Would you like to show them, or shall I?" The main display shifted again, now showing the massive Zephyrian dreadnought as it accelerated through space toward their position. The vessel was truly impressive, over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons designed to disable and capture prey vessels, carrying enough firepower to devastate entire planetary surfaces. But as the display zoomed out, other contacts became visible. Dozens of them, positioned throughout the system in patterns that suddenly made tactical sense to Commander Thexal's military training. 43 human vessels, Marcus said conversationally. All equipped with stealth systems, all positioned at optimal firing solutions relative to your dreadnought's approach vector. Captain Chen wasn't exaggerating when she said we don't hunt in packs. We prefer what you might call coordinated individual excellence. The tactical situation was impossible to misunderstand. The Zephyrian fleet had unknowingly flown into a carefully prepared ambush. Every approach to the system was covered. Every escape route was blocked. The human vessels were positioned with mathematical precision that spoke of planning that had taken months to execute. "This is madness," Vorth protested. "No species commits this level of resources to hunt a single target. The cost alone would bankrupt most civilizations." "You're still thinking like a predator," Marcus replied. "Predators hunt for immediate gain, food, territory, resources. Apex hunters think in much longer terms. We hunt to eliminate threats to the pack." Hesheth's compound eyes tracked the tactical displays with growing comprehension. "You're not just hunting our ship. You're hunting our entire species." "Not quite," Marcus corrected. "We're hunting your behavior." "There's a difference, though." "I understand the distinction might be subtle from your perspective." The elderly human walked to the chamber's central console and began accessing systems that should have been impossible for a prisoner to reach. Yet the ship's computers responded to his commands as if he had administrative access. Humans have encountered apex predator species before, he explained as data flowed across multiple screens. The pattern is always the same. Initial contact appears peaceful, sometimes even beneficial. Then the hunting begins. Local species disappear, trade routes become dangerous. Entire civilizations vanish. The displays showed historical records stretching back centuries. Other species, other sectors, always the same pattern of predation followed by expansion. The Zephyrians were not unique, they were simply the latest iteration of a recurring galactic threat. The problem with apex predators, Marcus continued, is that they can't stop hunting. It's not a choice for you, it's biological necessity. You hunt until everything is dead or until something stops you permanently. Commander Thexal felt his worldview shifting in ways that made him profoundly uncomfortable. You speak as if you've exterminated entire species. We have, Marcus said without emotion, when necessary. The Catherian swarm consumed 17 worlds before humanity developed countermeasures. The Void Stalkers of the Centauri sector eliminated 43 different civilizations over 2 centuries before we tracked them to their breeding grounds. The human's voice remained conversational, but the casual way he discussed the elimination of apex predator species sent chills through the Zephyrian crew. This wasn't boasting or intimidation, it was simple historical fact. Humans don't enjoy extermination, Marcus continued. We prefer coexistence, cooperation, mutual benefit. But when faced with species that can only exist by destroying others, we become something that most civilizations never see. Captain Chen's voice cut through the communication system again. Marcus, the dreadnought is maintaining course. Huntmaster Krell is demanding immediate communication. Should I put him through? Please do, Marcus replied. I think it's time for a full demonstration. The main display activated with the image of the largest Zephyrian any of the crew had ever seen. Huntmaster Krell stood over 12 feet tall, his scales bearing the ritual scars of hundreds of successful hunts. His eyes held the cold intelligence of a supreme predator who had never encountered anything he couldn't kill. Human, Krell's voice carried harmonics that could paralyze most nervous systems. You hold 3 of my hunters. Release them and surrender your vessels, and I will grant you the honor of ritual combat before consumption. Marcus Webb looked up at the towering alien with the same mild expression he had maintained throughout his captivity. Huntmaster Krell, I presume? I've read quite a lot about you. 17 systems conquered, over 40 different species hunted to extinction or submission. Quite an impressive resume. You know my achievements, Krell replied, his mandibles clicking with satisfaction. Then you understand that resistance is futile. Humanity lacks the strength to oppose true apex predators. Actually, Marcus said, touching a control panel, I'd like you to meet someone. The display split to show another human, this one a woman in what appeared to be military uniform. She was younger than Marcus, perhaps 40 standard years, but her eyes held the same calculating intelligence. Huntmaster Krell, this is Admiral Elizabeth Harrison, commanding officer of the Human Defense Initiative. Admiral Huntmaster Krell of the Zephyrian Hunting Fleet. Admiral Harrison smiled with polite courtesy. Huntmaster, I understand you've been operating in our territory for some time. I wanted to discuss terms for your departure. Krell's laugh was a sound like breaking stone. Terms? Humans offer? Terms to the apex predators of the galaxy? Your arrogance will make your consumption all the more satisfying. I'm afraid there's been a misunderstanding, Admiral Harrison replied. You see, we've been monitoring your activities for quite some time. 43 vessels in your fleet, approximately 15,000 individuals total, operating under the assumption that physical superiority equals tactical dominance. The display shifted to show the human fleet disposition around the system. What had appeared to be 43 vessels was revealed to be merely the visible component of a much larger force. Stealth signatures indicated over 200 human ships positioned throughout the sector. The thing about apex hunters, Admiral Harrison continued, is that we don't just prepare for the hunt we're conducting. We prepare for every possible hunt we might need to conduct in the future. Huntmaster Krell's confidence flickered for The first time as tactical analysis showed him exactly how thoroughly his fleet had been outmaneuvered. Impossible. No species maintains fleets of this size without purpose. The resources required would exceed the gross production of most civilizations. You're right, the Admiral agreed. Most civilizations can't afford this kind of military expenditure. But most civilizations don't face the existential threat that apex predator species represent. Humans learned long ago that some threats require permanent solutions. Marcus Webb stepped forward to address the Hun. Emergency lighting flickered to life 3 seconds after the electromagnetic restraints failed, bathing the interrogation chamber in pulsing red illumination. In those 3 seconds of darkness, everything had changed. Commander Thexal found himself pressed against the far wall of the chamber. His throat constricted by what felt like a metal cable but was actually Marcus Webb's surprisingly strong grip. The human had moved through the darkness with impossible precision, crossing 12 feet of space without making a sound audible to Zephyrian hearing. "Don't," Marcus said quietly as Sub-Commander Vorth began extending his combat claws. "Your friend here has about 15 seconds of consciousness left before the blood restriction to his brain causes permanent damage. I'd suggest we all stay very calm." Vorth froze, his predatory instincts warring between the impulse to attack and the recognition that something had gone catastrophically wrong with their assessment of the situation. The human's grip on Thexal was precise, professional, and applied with the kind of anatomical knowledge that suggested extensive experience with Zephyrian physiology. How? Thexal managed to rasp through his constricted airways. Marcus Webb smiled that same mild smile, though now it carried undertones that made Navigator Hesheth unconsciously step backward. "How did I escape the restraints? How do I know exactly where to apply pressure to render a Zephyrian unconscious? How did I move through your ship's darkness like I could see in perfect detail?" The human's grip shifted slightly, and Thexal felt sensation returning to his extremities as blood flow partially restored. It was a calculated adjustment, demonstrating both mercy and absolute control over the situation. "The restraints failed because I've been slowly overloading their power couplings for the past 6 hours," Marcus explained conversationally. Electromagnetic containment systems are remarkably consistent across species. They all rely on the same basic principles of field generation, and they all have the same fundamental weaknesses. Vorth's mandibles clicked nervously. "Impossible. The restraints are military-grade, designed to hold creatures far stronger than humans. You had no tools, no external assistance." "No tools?" Marcus agreed. "But I've had these hands for 73 years, and you'd be surprised what you can accomplish with detailed knowledge of electronics and enough patience. The human body produces a small electrical field. With the right techniques, you can use that field to create feedback loops in sensitive systems." He demonstrated by pressing his free hand against a wall panel, which immediately began cycling through diagnostic routines. It takes hours of careful manipulation, but electromagnetic locks weren't designed to handle that kind of persistent, low-level interference. Navigator Hesheth was analyzing her sensor readings with growing alarm. "Commander, the ship's internal security grid shows anomalous readings throughout the vessel. I'm detecting signs of systematic electronic manipulation dating back to shortly after the prisoner was brought aboard." The implications hit Thexal like a physical blow. While they had been congratulating themselves on capturing an easy target, the human had been quietly gaining control of their ship's systems. The casual way Marcus discussed advanced technical concepts made it clear this wasn't luck or desperation, it was methodical expertise. "You were studying us," Thexal realized, "from the moment you were captured." "From before that, actually," Marcus replied. "Your hunting fleet has been operating in this sector for approximately 18 months, leaving quite a trail of evidence. Disappearing ships, testimonies from survivors of other species, analysis of your tactics and technology. My government has been tracking your movements for some time." Vorth's scales rippled with confusion. "Government? You were alone in that craft. Our scans detected no military equipment, no communication arrays capable of long-range transmission. If you were part of some official investigation, where is your support?" Marcus Webb's laugh was genuinely amused. Support? You're thinking like hunters again. Pack tactics, coordinated strikes, overwhelming force applied at the point of contact. But that's not how apex hunters operate. He released Thexal entirely and stepped back, hands raised in a gesture of apparent surrender. The Zephyrian commander rubbed his throat, considering whether to signal an attack. Something in the human's posture suggested such a decision would be inadvisable. Apex hunters don't need packs because we don't rely on physical superiority, Marcus continued. We rely on intelligence, preparation, and patience. I've been tracking your fleet alone because one human with adequate preparation is more effective than a dozen humans without it. Impossible, Vorth snarled. You're an elderly member of a prey species. You have no natural weapons, no enhanced senses, no natural weapons, Marcus interrupted, pulling something from his clothing that made all three Zephyrians instinctively step backward. It wasn't a weapon in any conventional sense, just a small, seemingly harmless device that looked like a communication unit. This is a neural disruptor, he explained casually, specifically designed to interfere with the Zephyrian nervous system. Your species relies heavily on bioelectric impulses for muscular coordination and sensory processing. This device can overload those systems from a range of about 20 meters. Heshith's compound eyes went wide as her sensors confirmed the device's energy signature. Commander, that's military-grade technology. The power output required for neural disruption would need intimate knowledge of Zephyrian biology, advanced understanding of bioelectric systems, and access to manufacturing capabilities that most species don't possess, Marcus finished. Yes, humanity has all of those things. The human activated the device briefly, just long enough for all three aliens to feel a disturbing sensation of temporary disorientation. It lasted only a fraction of a second, but the demonstration was clear. He could incapacitate all of them instantly if he chose. The question you should be asking, Marcus said, deactivating the device, is how humans acquired such detailed knowledge of your species when you've only recently entered our territory? Thexal felt his hunting instincts shift into patterns he barely recognized. For the first time in his adult life, he was experiencing what it felt like to be prey. The sensation was simultaneously terrifying and educational. We studied the survivors, he said slowly, pieces of a larger picture beginning to form. The other species you've hunted? They told us about your methods, your technology, your biology, but that would require years of preparation, Marcus nodded approvingly. Systematic intelligence gathering. Technological development specifically aimed at countering your advantages. Most importantly, it would require thinking several steps ahead of your expansion pattern. Sub-Commander Vorth's claws retracted involuntarily as the implications sank in. You knew we were coming to this sector. We've known for over 2 years, Marcus confirmed. Your fleet follows predictable patterns. You establish dominance in a region, hunt the local species to near extinction or complete submission, then move on to the next area with adequate prey density. It's efficient, but it's also mathematically predictable. The human began walking slowly around the chamber, his movements now clearly those of a predator in complete control of its environment. The casual way he moved through their space, combined with his obvious knowledge of their ship systems, made it clear that the power dynamic had shifted entirely. Humans have been watching civilizations rise and fall for millennia, Marcus explained. We've seen every possible variation of predator behavior, from individual hunters to pack tactics to swarm strategies. You're impressive, but you're not unique. Navigator Hesheth accessed her tactical databases, searching for any reference to human military capabilities. What she found made her inner mandibles click with alarm. Commander, according to interspecies intelligence reports, humans are classified as a peaceful trading species. Agricultural background, democratic governments, minimal military presence in most sectors. Marcus Webb's smile turned genuinely predatory for the first time. Do you know what the most successful predators in Earth's history had in common? They didn't look like predators. They looked harmless, sometimes even helpful, right up until they struck. He gestured toward the chamber's observation ports, beyond which the vast darkness of space stretched endlessly. Every species you've encountered judges threats based on obvious physical capabilities. Claws, fangs, armor, size, speed. But humans learned long ago that the deadliest predators are the ones nobody sees coming. The ship's internal communication system suddenly crackled to life, though none of the Zephyrians had activated it. Marcus's voice came through the speakers, but he was standing directly in front of them. Testing, testing. This is Marcus Webb, aboard the Zephyrian vessel Kethver. Please confirm signal reception. A new voice responded, unmistakably human but with the crisp efficiency of military communications. Signal confirmed, Marcus. This is Captain Sarah Chun aboard the Persistence. We have the Zephyrian vessel on long-range sensors. Are you ready for Phase 2? Vexal's blood ran cold as the implications hit him. You're not alone? Did I mention we don't hunt in packs? Marcus asked rhetorically. That doesn't mean we hunt alone. It means we coordinate across vast distances using technology you haven't developed yet. The main display S. The transport ship Kethver cut through the void between stars, its hull gleaming with the predatory elegance that marked all vessels of the Zephyrian hunting fleet. Inside the cargo bay, electromagnetic restraints hummed with power, holding fast a single prisoner who had been the source of considerable amusement for the crew over the past 3 cycles, Commander. Vexal clicked his mandibles in satisfaction as he observed the captured human through the observation port. The creature was old by human standards, his hair silvered with age and his face lined with what the aliens assumed were marks of weakness. Bent slightly forward, the human sat quietly in his restraints, occasionally glancing around the cargo bay with what appeared to be idle curiosity rather than the terror Vexal expected from prey. "Look at this pathetic thing," sneered Sub-Commander Vorth, his scales rippling with derision. "The humans call this specimen Marcus Webb, according to the data we extracted from his vessel. 73 rotations around their star? Ancient for their kind. The Zephyrians had encountered humans only recently, during their expansion into what they considered virgin hunting territory. These bipedal creatures had proven disappointingly easy to track and capture, lacking the natural armor, claws, or venomous defenses that made other species interesting prey. Most humans they encountered panicked immediately, making them poor sport for the sophisticated hunters of the Zephyrian Empire. The creature was alone in that small craft," Vorth continued, accessing his tactical display. "Our sensors detected no weapons beyond primitive projectile launchers. No escort vessels. No distress beacon. Either their kind has abandoned their elderly, or this one was already considered worthless by his pack." Vexala's hunting instincts had been honed over decades of pursuing the galaxy's most dangerous predators. He had tracked the razor wolves of Kepler Prime through acid storms, hunted the crystal serpents of the Helix Nebula in zero gravity, and claimed trophies from creatures that could melt steel with their breath. Yet something about this human bothered him in a way he couldn't articulate. "The old one shows no fear," observed Navigator Hesht H from her position at the sensor array. Her compound eyes tracked the human's vital signs on multiple displays. Heart rate steady. No stress hormones detected. Brain activity patterns suggest contemplation rather than panic. Sub-Commander Vorth flicked his forked tongue dismissively. Primitive creatures often experience shock when faced with superior predators. The human's mind has likely shut down from the overwhelming realization of its inferiority. I've seen similar responses in the coral deer of Andromache when cornered by shadow panthers. The hunting party had numbered 12 when they departed the fleet's primary vessel, the massive dreadnought Apex Throne. Each Zephyrian warrior stood over 9 feet tall, their bodies evolved for perfect predation. Retractable claws could extend from their fingers with surgical precision or devastating force. Their scales could shift color for camouflage, and their enhanced musculature allowed them to leap incredible distances or strike with bone-crushing power. Most impressively, each hunter possessed what they called the killing sight, enhanced vision that could track heat signatures. detect the faintest movement, and calculate optimal strike patterns in microseconds. It was this combination of natural advantages that had elevated the Zephyrians to the apex of the galactic food chain, making them the most feared predators in known space. "Shall we begin the ceremony?" asked Vorth eagerly. The ritual torture and consumption of worthy prey was considered both art and religion among their kind. However, the humans' apparent frailty had reduced what should have been a significant hunt to a mere formality. Dexal considered this. The Kethver was still 2 cycles away from rendezvous with the fleet, where the human would be presented to the hunt master for final judgment. Traditionally, prey captured alive was kept in optimal condition until the ceremonial hunt could be conducted properly, with the full pack present to witness and participate, but this human troubled him. Despite its age and apparent weakness, something in the creature's eyes suggested depths that their surface scans might have missed. Dexal had learned over his hunting career that underestimating prey, regardless of how inferior it appeared, was the fastest way to become prey himself. "Bring it to the interrogation chamber," he decided. "I want to understand what we're dealing with before we proceed." The cargo bay's magnetic locks disengaged with a sharp hiss, and the human's restraint pod began moving toward the ship's center. Marcus Webb made no struggle against the automated systems, showing neither resistance nor resignation. His pale blue eyes continued their methodical observation of his surroundings, as if cataloging details for future reference. The interrogation chamber was a testament to Zephyrian psychological warfare. The walls could display any environment, from peaceful meadows to horrific scenes of previous hunts. Sonic weapons could produce sounds designed to trigger primal terror in most species. Chemical dispensers could release pheromones that induced various emotional states. From crippling fear to berserker rage, none of it seemed to affect the human. "Interesting," murmured Dexal as the readings continued to show stable vitals. "Most species show some response to the environmental triggers. Even the notorious stone bears of Rigel 7 demonstrate elevated stress when exposed to the scent markers of superior predators." Marcus Webb looked up at his captors with what appeared to be mild interest. When he spoke, his voice was steady and conversational, as if he were discussing weather rather than facing imminent death. "You know," the human said, "I've been watching you folks for the better part of 3 days now. Fascinating behavioral patterns. Very sophisticated hunting techniques, obviously evolved over millennia of apex predation. The way you move, coordinate, process sensory data, all extremely impressive." Vorth's scales rippled with surprise. The human's language was being automatically translated, but the calm, almost analytical tone was disturbing. Prey wasn't supposed to observe its predators with academic interest. "The creature attempts to curry favor through flattery," Vorth concluded. "A common survival mechanism among prey species when facing inevitable death." But Dexal wasn't convinced. There was something in the human's posture, in the way he held his head, that reminded the commander of his first encounter with a mature void stalker. The space predator had appeared docile and defenseless until the moment it struck, moving faster than Zephyrian reflexes could follow. 3 hunters had died before they realized their mistake. "You claim to observe us?" Dexal said, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones that could paralyze most nervous systems. "What do you believe you have learned, Prey?" Marcus Webb smiled, a gesture that showed his small, flat teeth. Zephyrians found human dental structure particularly pathetic. No fangs, no cutting edges, no visible adaptations for efficient killing. Yet the smile somehow made Dexal's hunting instincts sharpen rather than relax. "Oh, quite a lot actually," the human replied. "For instance, you classify yourselves as apex predators based on physical superiority, enhanced senses, and collaborative hunting techniques. All perfectly valid evolutionary advantages. You've clearly dominated your local ecosystem and expanded that dominance across multiple star systems." The human paused, shifting slightly in his restraints. The movement was subtle, but Dexal noticed it was the first time the creature had tested the bounds of his confinement. "The problem with your assumption," Marcus continued, "is that you're evaluating other species using your own criteria for predation. It's a bit like a shark, assuming that everything in the ocean hunts like a shark. Navigator Heshith's compound eyes narrowed as she analyzed the human's biometrics. Commander, I'm detecting subtle changes in the prisoner's stress indicators. Not fear responses, something else. Its brain activity is shifting into patterns I don't recognize. Sub-Commander Vorth stepped closer to the restraint field, his natural weapons extending slightly in a display of dominance. Enough babbling, creature. You speak of predation as if your pathetic species understands the concept. Humans are barely evolved beyond tree-dwelling herbivores. You have no claws, no fangs, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. Your prey pretending to be predator. The human smile widened slightly. And for the first time since his capture, Marcus Webb's eyes hardened with something that might have been anticipation. You know what's funny about that assessment? He asked. You're absolutely right about our physical limitations. We're not built like predators. We're slow, weak, have terrible natural weapons. And our senses are pretty mediocre compared to most species we've encountered. Exal felt his hunting instinct sharpen to a razor edge. Every survival instinct he possessed was suddenly screaming warnings, though he couldn't identify the source of the threat. The human remained motionless in his restraints, apparently helpless. Yet something fundamental had shifted in the chamber's atmosphere. But here's the thing you might want to consider, Marcus Webb said, his voice dropping to a conversational whisper that somehow carried more menace than the loudest roar. You're hunters and very good ones. Probably the best hunters in this part of the galaxy. He paused, and in that moment of silence, the Exal realized that the human's apparent helplessness had been a performance.